Welcome to another session of AircraftPost Rousseau Report. I'm your host, Dennis Rousseau. Going through some data recently, I read that as of some aircraft data, I read that as of June 2021, there were over 10,727 Boeing 737s built. The average 737 airliner flies 7.6 hours per day with a 1.4 hour-to-cycle ratio. Now, you've heard me talk about regurgitated airframes for business jets. This one takes the cake. The 737 uses the exact fuselage used on the Boeing 707 dating back to 1958. 64 years. Well, today we're not going to talk about the 707, but a derivative of the 737, the BBJ. That's a woman's clothing store, I believe. The Boston Business Journal? Thank you. Boeing's foray into the business jet market was announced in 1996 as a joint venture between Boeing and General Electric, who supplied the GE Snecma or Safran CFM 56-7 engines. This was a focused marketing effort because in the 70s, Boeing would sell prospective buyers a green airliner. Then it was up to the end user to outfit it with long-range fuel tanks, executive interior, and avionics. Typical airliner mentality. Arm & Hammer of Occidental Petroleum fame had a 727-100. We shared a hangar with them. Assam Ferris was one of the first to purchase a brand new 727-200. But not until the 90s did the BBJ take off. No pun intended. Boeing actually established a separate entity for the BBJ to deal exclusively with buyers in this market segment. The BBJ series, which I'll address in a moment, are derivatives of the Boeing 737 airliner, with interiors designed for the business jet market and additional fuel tanks for range. The green aircraft, as seen here, had a price point new of plus or minus $35 million. Could you get them for 30, 28, plus interior and options, which could add another 10 to 12 million to the base price. Now, although the fuselage and wing continue with aluminum construction, composites are used for the nose cone, wing fairings, and other areas to cut down on weight. When we see 737 airliners at commercial airports, we think nothing of their size, especially if they're parked next to a 777 or a Boeing 747, in which case they look really small. But when you see one up close, they're huge. They have a wingspan of just over 117 feet. Now, this is the original BBJ 700 with the 800 wing. Overall length of 110 feet and a tail height of 41 feet 3 inches. Now keep in mind, this is a 700 fuselage. The Dash 900 that they've converted to a BBJ is 28 feet longer. And speaking of size, one of the drawbacks to such a large aircraft is finding a hangar. The majority of business jet hangars have a door height of around 28 feet. So 9 out of 10 times, the aircraft will sit in the elements. The BBJ's standard fuel system holds 6,875 gallons in the wings and the center tank, which leaves 964 cubic feet of baggage or cargo space underfloor. Now think about this. The G550 has the largest baggage compartment of any business jet at 225 cubic feet. In order for the BBJ to reach its intended mission of 6,000 miles, you add auxiliary fuel tanks, such as the one shown on the lower left. Each one holds around 525 gallons, and the aircraft can hold up to 9 tanks, which would then give you a 6,200 nautical mile range. However, look what happens to your cargo volume. If you add 7 tanks, you have the equivalent baggage capacity of a G550. And keep in mind, this monster of an airplane burns on average 700 gallons per hour. If you do load the aircraft with max fuel of 71,600 pounds, like everything else in aviation, you're going to take away from something else. I'll circle back to the cargo hold in a moment. Notice the takeoff weight of 171,000 pounds. Once again, you're limited to larger airports that can accommodate such weight. Consider this. At max gross weight, the main gear exerts the equivalent of 40,000 pounds of weight on its footprint. Teterboro Airport, one of the busiest airports in North America, has a weight limit of 100,000 pounds. BBJ is not going to go there. I'm based at a near 6,000-foot elevation airport with our longest runway of 9,000 feet, And during the summer, we can easily start the day at 75 degrees and hit 100 by the afternoon. Now look what happens at a 5,000-foot elevation at ISO plus 20. Once again, trade-off. Typical cruise speed is 0.79, right up to 0.8 Mach. And you're going to start out in the mid-30s due to a T-wheel limitation, which I'll address in a minute. Then you'll step climb to 370 or 390 after roughly 3 hours and burning off some fuel. And you'll notice that Boeing allows a 12,400-pound interior completion allowance. So how can we outfit the interior? Let's start with the cockpit. I included a photo before installing the avionics to give you an idea of just how much goes into this little space. Relatively speaking, of course. This is an early generation cockpit that's fairly well equipped, and you'll notice just below the center screen is a second ICAS, engine indicating crew alerting system, nestled between the two dual FMS. So it's actually a 6-screen display. Head-up guidance system, standard, and the most expensive cockpit option you'll add is SATCOM. This is a photo of an aircraft in its green state. No interior. If the aircraft were going to the airlines, now remember, this is what most of us see. Or we would put together an executive floor plan, and this is what we could do with a 79-foot cabin length. And notice the 11-foot 6-inch cabin width and 7-foot cabin height compared to a Global 7500 that has 36 foot of length and 8 feet of width. In the forward section, you'll typically see the main galley and crew cabin, which I'll show you in a moment. As we move aft, we have the main lounge followed by a conference room or dining area. Then a passenger lavatory with a shower, of course, followed by a private office, then the stateroom, and VIP lavatory and shower. Now, as the aircraft will not be using commercial gates to enplane and deplane, it has its own air stair, folds neatly into the side of the fuselage. Once inside, we pass through the crew cabin that has its own lavatory, as well as a 3-place berthable divan that can also serve as a workstation. The forward galley, very well equipped to serve 3 full meals on a 12-hour mission. And it has enough storage to carry food and supplies for international trips, so you're not forced to buy food in foreign lands. And believe it or not, this is a very big plus, especially with all the viruses and everything else going on. Now, we enter the lounge. Sort of reminds me one of the Southwest Airlines airplanes, right? Not. Pick a seat, any seat, and relax. This configuration opens up a whole new world of flying. The majority of seats can berth, recline, and swivel. The divan can also be berthed, as well as the conference group on the left just after the single forward-facing seat. Then we enter the conference room, or dining area. Talk about luxurious. Comfortable seating, my God. It's a different world for sure. Another variation on a theme is the photo on the right, that's geared more toward a corporate environment, although very few corporations operate these due to its large ramp presence, and you certainly don't want to be seen on one of these after you just laid off 5,000 people. Of the 179 BBJs built over the last 22 years, each one seems to have been designed and configured with a specific mission in mind. The photos on the left have conference grouping, opposite 2 singles, the entire length of the cabin. The 2-place divan in the private office also berths into a full-size bed for those times when you work late and just can't seem to make it to your full-width private stateroom with a private dining suite. And lest we forget, there are also 2 single beds for the kids. But before breakfast, let's step into the Aft Private Laboratory. I think that's United Airlines. Much better. A full-size shower and a bathroom with all the amenities of home. Now, I can only imagine taking a shower and hitting some severe turbulence. Well, I'll let you think about that one. Let's circle back now to the cargo hold. Oops, that was airline jargon. The baggage compartment, as we know it in business aviation. The 737 sits very close to the ground, which makes loading and unloading baggage relatively easy. When you think of the mere length of the cabin, airliner cargo can be placed underfloor for most of that length. However, if we want an aircraft that can travel 6,000 miles, we're going to need more fuel. And the PATS tanks we referenced earlier are installed underfloor. And as mentioned, it's a give and take situation. The system offers combinations of forward and aft tanks, from 1 tank to 9, each holding 520 gallons of fuel. If we install 9 AUX tanks, they take up near all the underfloor space, leaving little room for passenger luggage. So typical arrangement, you're going to see 6 AUX tanks giving us a total fuel load of 9,923 gallons, yielding an endurance of 12 plus hours with reserves. And that leaves us with 300 cubic feet of underfloor storage, which is not accessible, by the way, in flight, obviously. Of the 179 BBJs currently in service, the U.S. government owns and operates 27, and why we need 27 is way beyond my pay grade. Other countries, such as Australia and India, own 2. Mali, Thailand, and Indonesia, 1 each. The U.S., 27. Now think about it. That's $1.7 billion in acquisition costs alone, not to mention all the Gulfstreams, Lears, and Citations they own. Staggering. Now to that, let's add $5,000 per hour for fuel, $15,000 per hour for market depreciation, let alone $1 million a year for crew. So what does a 6,000-mile range look like? From New York, you're pretty much going to a lot of places nonstop. Eastern Asia and Eastern Europe, South America, Africa, nonstop. Competition for the BBJ resides with the Airbus ACJ 318, 319, and 320, as seen here. And of the 3 models, 112 are currently in service. Interiors and performance are all pretty much neck and neck with the BBJ. However, the Airbus is full fly-by-wire and features side-stick controllers. What's new for the BBJ? Well, for one, the blended winglet found on the early aircraft has been replaced with the split scimitar winglet that's standard on all BBJs now, and features ventral strakes, scimitar tips, and trailing edge wedges that provide drag reduction and a corresponding increase in range. Similar to all current production business jets, the cockpit now features 4 LCDs. And these new systems can interchange data, and the screens are so much easier on the eyes and display so much more information. The new GE, Snecma, Safran engines are still manufactured by the same and are a derivative of the CFM56. One great improvement was the rotor speed limit of the T-wheels or turbine wheels of the CFM56 that limited the initial climb to flight level 350, and this is no longer the case. As well, the LEAP engine burns 15% less fuel and 15% reduction in CO2 emissions, and meets future Chapter 14 noise regulations. Now, I mentioned the earlier BBJ series. When you think of Boeing's current lineup, the 787, 777, the 737-700, -800, -900, yep, they can all be converted to a Boeing Business Jet. As a side note, when the BBJ was introduced, Boeing had projected 6 to 8 aircraft per year, and with 179 aircraft in service, they hit the nail on the head. With the $70 million ultra-long-range business jets jockeying for position in the 7,000 nautical mile range category, with emphasis on lower cabin altitude, speed, and comfort, it makes one wonder if Boeing has a future in the business jet market. Today, there are 12 BBJs and 10 ACJs, or Airbus corporate jets, on the market, ranging in price from $15 to $60 million, with no recent sales to report. I mentioned market depreciation earlier. You purchase a near-new aircraft today, and 4 years hence, you're lucky to come out of this with 50% of your original cost new. And herein lies another problem with converted airliners. They're still airliners. I'm Dennis Rousseau with AircraftPost Rousseau Report. Join us next time, and we look forward to seeing you. Thank you.